The status quo kills. The status quo is the same as doing things the same way over and over again and expecting a different result. And I love what Ayman Mohyeldin had to say today. Remember what I said several times ago. If you really want to hear about the Palestinian Israeli situation, if you really want to learn about it, there are very few hosts that can really tell you in an honest and objective manner what's happening. And these are Ali Velci, Ayman Mohyeldin, as well as Mehdi Hassan. Those are, in my opinion, some of the best hosts on cable TV that are on all of the times that can really give a substantive view of not what is occurring, but why we are here. Listen to Ayman Mohyeldin when he talks about the status quo right here. I think it's important what he has to say.
Invoking the specter of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan may be a useful sort of rhetorical tool to convince Israelis, look, we mean the best here. But what it does when you talk about the Arab world, to invoke the specter of that is deeply problematic.
And to stay on the 9/11 analogy, if you kind of play it out over the span of the outcome, the United States wanted to go after Osama bin Laden. They ended up invading Afghanistan, toppling the Taliban, 20 years of war. They then used a concocted excuse of WMDs, which everyone believed and now knows was pushed upon the public as a lie, to invade Iraq. And look at how those two countries turned out. Yeah. In the case of Afghanistan, the Taliban are back. In the case of Iraq, is an ethno-nationalist state that is predominantly controlled by Iranian-backed Iraqi militias. We got rid of al-Qaeda. What did we get in return? We got ISIS 2.0, and we ended up having years of terrorism across the United States and Europe that still haunts us till this day. So I think, to Michelle's point, which is very important, anyone who's trying to convey to the Israelis, take a beat. Learn from our mistakes. The anger is real. The pain is real. The suffering is real. But the revenge may end up being something that produces an outcome that is much more disastrous. Everybody keeps saying we're not going to, in Israel, everybody says we are not going to return to the status quo. A very important point. But the status quo means, does that include freedom for the Palestinians? Are you going to put Gaza without Hamas under a blockade, or are you going to get rid of Hamas but keep the Palestinians blockaded inside the Gaza Strip in an open-air prison while the Palestinians in the West Bank? It can't just be not a return to the status quo for Israel. Can you give us a return not to the status quo for the Palestinians? And that answer, I have not heard a single person say no.
You point this out, Michelle. The language coming from the right in America is not doing any service to any sort of accord happening in the Middle East.
Well, the language coming from the right, which kind of then licenses similarly inflammatory kind of expulsionist language that you hear coming out of this Israeli government. I mean, even before these, these horrific massacres, you had many people in the Israeli government who talked about, kind of the need to, who already wanted to expel Palestinians from, kind of from the 67 borders of Israel and kind of from all the land of Greater Israel. You already had that tendency. These are people who've in many cases devoted their lives, certainly in the case of Netanyahu, to avoiding the creation of a Palestinian state. I mean, that is why Netanyahu in some ways has built up Hamas as an alternative so that he could undercut the PLO and he could undercut the kind of secular nationalists. So there's no way that you're going to see Netanyahu oversee, a kind of understanding that the Palestinians, contrary to what Jared Kushner and the rest of them thought, that, this idea that the Palestinians could just be kind of ignored and you could make peace without them and keep this going forever. That's not possible, but he is not the man who is going to be able to transcend this situation.
Which is why it is explicitly being asked, how does this war end and what does it actually mean?
Exactly right. If we keep that status quo, if nothing changes, nothing changes. Israel will continue to bomb and maim and kill folks in Gaza and the West Bank, etc. And the folks in the Gaza and the West Bank, terrorists and otherwise, will be lobbing stuff right back at Israel. And we stay in this state of permanence. And I think to some extent, having Israel protected by a iron dome, as good as it is to save people's lives, kick a lot down the road. It means by having an Iron Dome, by us investing so much money into protecting Israel's not only sovereignty but security, what it meant as well is that there was no rush to solve the Palestinian-Israeli issue. That these people live in a open air prison. Who cares? Out of sight, out of mind. Same with the West Bank, etc. We have to start acknowledging that all folks are humans. We don't need to create false equivalencies. But again, a dead person is a dead person is a dead person. Let's start looking into our own humanity and ensuring that all humanity is maintained.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel, and number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.